I won't be there for day one. I will be there in day two, and John's promised me he'll still be there when I arrive. So if you could do me a big favour and just keep a tab on him until I arrive, that would be great.
You do know Dusseldorf has apparently got the longest bar because every bar is like connected, so it's meant to be like a mile long of bars.
Yeah, but not during the day. I need you to still be at the conference during the day, so can't start early doors.
Welcome back to the Sports Dentistry podcast. So the All Blacks came to town, Umar, and they left still undefeated in Murrayfield.
They left undefeated after the first half. I was thinking this is going to be a pretty difficult second half. But in all fairness, we brought it back, tied the game, and if Darcy had finished that try, then it could have been a totally different story. But that's the fine margins at the highest level, being able to be within inches of placing the ball on the ground, potentially winning against what can only be said is an unbelievable All Blacks team, to then actually finishing on the losing side after what can only be described as one of the best tries I think I've seen against Scotland. It was absolutely incredible, and I've got some stories from that game which I'll share with you afterwards from people behind the scenes, but it was an unbelievable spectacle. And we were at home, me and the girls, watching the haka on the big screen. It was just as good as I've always remembered it. Did you have a chance to watch any of it?
Yes, I watched it, yes. I did think Scotland were going to get railroaded at one stage, but then thankfully for you guys, the refs helped us out, and he's got 30 minutes with an extra man for three yellow cards.
Listen,
so let you come back into it a wee bit, and I made it a bit more competitive.
Listen, the All Blacks weren't playing fair, okay? All 3 yellow cards were well deserved, to be honest with you. I didn't bite. You did message me in the group chat. I did not bite. And to be fair, if we can't win against 14 men for they were off for 30 minutes in total, right? 10 minutes. Yeah, we're going to struggle. But hats off. It was a great game. Murrayfield was, from all accounts, absolutely jumping in the second half when we drew it back level. And from my sources who were at the game were just saying that there was a real feel of hope, a real feel of a fairy tale ending, but it wasn't to be. But everybody was in good spirits. I think the Scotland contingent were obviously very disappointed, but at the same time we need to take our hats off to what can only be described as one of the best teams in any sport, not just rugby, but in any sport, and just the aura that they have and the fans that they bring and the sheer attraction to being even like a neutral like yourself watching the game. It's great.
Yeah, hope is a cruel mistress, isn't it? So it's the hope that kills you.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. I was sitting at home at Scotland top, like, come on.
You're bigging up the All Blacks there, and they are a good team, but I think the team of the weekend was South Africa. They were down to 14 men, straight red card against the Six Nations champions.
Yeah.
And they just railroaded them at the end. The France ran out of steam and they had an extra man. So looking forward to getting down to Cape Town in a few weeks to see what's going on down there, what's making South Africa so strong.
Yeah, and what they're feeding them out there as well, because those guys are absolute monsters. And I've heard that South Africa is home to some of the best steaks in the world. And I've obviously been there and I had some of the best steaks, and I just can't wait to get back out there and dine and just see everybody and meet everybody. And I am really interested to see the Stellenbosch Academy of Sport. Really intrigued to see what sort of setup they have there and what it looks like. And when you're involved with elite sport and you see the facilities that they have here, but for the home of the world champions, it'll be something quite exceptional. And one day I would love to get out to America and go to one of the big NFL teams and see what they do, because I can only imagine it's absolute carnage in terms of their gym facilities, their training facilities. Have you had a chance to see any of that when you've been out there?
No, not the NFL. I've been lucky enough to go to the UFC Performance Center in Las Vegas. It's an absolutely fantastic setup, but unfortunately, I haven't got a chance to see the facilities when any team. It's just like, when it comes to American football, it's the number of athletes they have to facilitate for. Like there's 53 on their roster, but then they have their training squad. Like it's massive numbers compared to what we're dealing with in other sports, even the likes of rugby, where you maybe would have a squad of 30, 35, 40.
Yeah.
Like your game day squad in American football is even bigger than that.
Yeah.
So their extended squad must be just pure. The facilities just must be massive to be able to facilitate.
Well, that's the impressive thing, isn't it? It's kind of seeing what they do to that level. And we know that the NFL is the biggest sporting industry in the world. And I just found out actually at the weekend that the second largest sporting fraternity, if you want to call it that, is actually the IPL, which is the Indian Premier League in India. And it's just surpassed the Premier League. And we're talking, billions and billions and billions of pounds/dollars in that. And it just goes to show you that if you have enough people investing in a specific sport, how they can just take it global. And these are the sort of teams, franchises, athletes, organizations that we really need to be looking at and seeing how we can make a difference, because when they are spending that much money on having such amazing facilities, then the 1%ers will, with time, add up. We know that sports medicine has been around for quite a period of time, and to the level that they're at now, where it's such an integral part of what athletes and organizations do, I think it was only fitting that we decided that it now would be a good time to get somebody who's really heavily involved in sports medicine and really is one of the pioneers at the forefronts of it at the moment to come on and give us his say.
Yes, we do have a sports mag as our guest, and it's good to talk about that relation, particularly with Dr. Amir Pakravan that we'll have on today.
Amir Pakravan.
Yeah, I know, I messed that one up. As soon as it came out, as soon as I started, I knew I messed it up.
You didn't even have to say his second name. You could have just said Dr. Amir. You could have got away with it.
But Amir is heavily involved with EcoSIP, who runs the joint conference with the European Association of Sports Dentistry, which we'll be going to next week. So it'll be really interesting to see how they've been able to develop that relationship and his thoughts on sports dentistry and how he's brought it on. But if we touch back to the All Blacks, I believe also there's something came to light from the weekend is there's a dentist as part of the All Black squad at the moment, which is something that you don't really hear in professional rugby anymore. You don't really hear of these dual types of careers. It's more, you see a lot more of the rugby players now trying to use the skills that they learned from being in a team and from leadership and going into businesses to provide support that way. You don't really see the same double career pathways with the likes of dentistry that you would have maybe seen back before the game turned professional.
Yeah, that's right. And the reason that came to light, actually, I'm glad you touched on it before we move on to Amir, is that we got a message from the head doctor of Scottish Rugby asking if we could see one of the New Zealand players. He's got toothache. Can he be seen? So my colleague Azzy was in clinic on the Wednesday and very kindly saw the player. He had irreversible pulpitis of a tooth, which needed to be treated. And he's in the starting 15, this player as well. So it's an important player to get treated. And he'd actually mentioned to Azzy that actually there's a guy who's just not just been called up, but he's been part of the squad for a little while, who graduated from the University of Otago Dental School and goes by the name of Christian Leo Willie. So shout out to Christian. We will get you in the pod, my friend. You've not messaged me back yet, but we will get you on.
You getting ghosted? Are you getting ghosted again?
I am. We will get him on. So he was, this player had mentioned that he's a dentist, and it was quite interesting actually that as he managed to sort it out. And the good thing was she was actually working pitch side at the game on Saturday, and the New Zealand doctor actually came over to her and thanked her personally for taking the time out to see the player. And I think this is where the building blocks happen, and this is where organizations, and we're talking about the All Blacks, some of the best in history, taken the opportunity to use the services that we had here, and we'll hopefully be able to liaise with the New Zealand medics and kind of get more of a inkling to what it is that happens down that side of the world. But it just goes to show you just how important to have trust of somebody that you can call upon to get you out of trouble when needed. And we've talked about the connection that you and I have had recently, along with Annie and Lyndon as being the home nations dentist when the players were going to Australia with the Lions this summer, and we had some players that we had to deal with. So it really is a great network that we've got here, and that's just a perfect example of last week, what happened.
Yeah, no, it's great. And talking about networking, we're Dusseldorf next week. That's another reason why we've got Amir on, is to build up the conference next week. And we've got ourselves under pressure about doing some live interviews when we're there. So don't know how that's going to go down. We've been researching microphones. looking forward together. Looking forward to catching up with everyone. Like, we've all got busy lives. We're all different parts of the country. All the us guys that are based in the UK and Ireland will get a chance to see each other maybe a little bit more regularly. But it's probably been 2 years since I've seen some of the sports dentists that we're going to see in Dusseldorf next week, when we held it the last time in Edinburgh. So it's going to be great to catch up with everyone and see how everyone's doing, and getting some insights and seeing what's happening and what developments are happening across Europe and abroad.
Yeah, it's crazy to think it's been 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Murrayfield 2 years ago, and now we're a week away. This time next week, you'll be in Dusseldorf. I'll still be thinking about work, and you'll be gallivanting on the mile-long strip.
Yes, I will be. Yes, testing the water. On Wednesday night. Yeah, it'll be 11 p.m. over there this time next week. So, yes, definitely, I will. I will be testing the water.
Yeah, but that leads on quite nicely to Amir and his role and what he's done with sports medicine, and also his role within EA4SD and within sports dentistry, and how he's managed to amalgamate the two, and what he's been doing with the CMO of GB Basketball, and been hearing that they've implemented new guidelines on mouth guards. So I'd be really interested to hear what he has to say with that, and just about his history, and really just to get a background on sports medicine generally as a specialty. He's obviously quite well known in that field. He's done a lot of international speaking, and it's only right that we get him on in the lead up to Dusseldorf next week, when we'll obviously see him in person. But I think people will want to hear what he has to say, and he seems like a very interesting chap.
Yeah, it's going to be good to catch up with Amir and hear his side of things. So let's go. Hey there, Sports Dentistry fam. We've got big news. If you love sport, teeth, and travel, you're going to want to listen up.
That's right. The very first South African Sports Dentistry Association conference is happening this year, and you're invited.
Join us in Stellenbosch on Friday the 5th of December 2025 for a day of exciting lectures, expert panels, and vibrant networking with sports dentists from across the globe.
Then stick around for a stunning conference dinner under the stars, Stellenbosch style, at the famous Byerskloof Winery. And on Saturday the 6th of December, we head to the world-famous Cape Town Sevens rugby at the DHL Stadium, sitting at the foot of Table Mountain, for an epic day of sport, sun, and celebration.
It's the perfect blend of education, networking, and unforgettable South African energy, all in one weekend.
So, whether you're chasing CPD or chasing Sevens tickets, this is your chance to be part of something truly special.
Come join us in the Rainbow Nation. Tickets are limited. Grab yours now via the link in the description.
The inaugural South African Sports Dentistry Association Conference, December the 5th and 6th, 2025, Stellenbosch and Cape Town. We'll see you there.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome on to the Sports Dentistry podcast this week, Dr. Amir Pakravan. Thanks very much for coming on, Amir.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me here. It's really great to be here with you guys.
It's really looking forward to this conversation. Particularly, we've spoken a number of times on the Sports Dentistry podcast about the importance of sports dentists to have that really good relationship with the sports medics. So it's great for you to come on and share your experiences, particularly in the lead up to the conference in a few weeks in Dusseldorf. But just before we get into everything, just for people that maybe haven't had the pleasure of meeting yourself and getting to know you, can you give us a little bit of a background to yourself, how you got into sports and things like that?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a consultant in sports and exercise medicine, musculoskeletal medicine. So I've been through the formal training program. And obviously, as part of that job, a big chunk of my work is very much focused around musculoskeletal medicine and the clinics that I run in London. But obviously, on the side, there are all these different aspects to the work that we may be able to have a bit more chat about. There's that involvement with elite sports. There's the involvement with promoting physical activity and well-being, and all the different aspects to essentially such as teaching, university work, research, and getting involved with various publications. So essentially a very varied and, in my opinion, very exciting field to be involved with.
Yeah, definitely is. When did you first get into the sports aspect? So you trained as a doctor, and then it's my understanding just from having conversations with other sports medics that sports medicine is only really starting to be established over the last 5-10 years. So when you first got into medicine stuff, what was sports medicine like then, and how did it evolve for you in your career?
Well, in a way, I'd always been personally involved with sports one way or the other, be it martial arts that I used to do in the past, weight training, bodybuilding, those kind of stuff. And when, as a medical student, you're involved with this kind of stuff, you automatically end up kind of becoming either the team doctor or the reference point, people coming to you even when you're a student. And in a way, in my case, you kind of start to build up that interest in the field. Obviously, as you said, the specialty as a specialty, is established kind of medical specialty, is not very old. In fact, going back to a bit of history about it, probably in the UK, I can say it was 1981 when Professor John King first started a postgraduate degree course in sports medicine at Queen Mary University in London. And that's kind of the starting point when things became a little bit more formalized, a little bit more, established. But back then it was like an MSc course in sports medicine when doctors could attend and get an MSc in sports medicine. Since then, different kind of points in time, things started to develop. Say, for example, Commonwealth Games, a few years after that, there was this meeting that everybody decided, well, we need to have sports medicine as a separate thing because of the need that is out there. And eventually, I think it was in 2006 that Parliament passed, essentially approved sports medicine as a standalone specialty. And 2007, I think, is when the first people were taken on board and started training in the specialty. So that's kind of a brief history of how sports medicine developed in this country. And obviously, the different kind of pathways into, getting into the specialty. One established pathway now is just going through the formal training. So registrar training, the usual pathway as other specialties. The other pathway, which kind of now is starting to become a bit less popular, was for those who were already involved with sports medicine from other specialties to apply and get approved to be recognized as a consultant in sports medicine. But as I said, as the years have gone on, now that one is not that, that doesn't happen very often anymore, because majority of them have already been through that process. So this is how the whole thing was developed in the UK. And exactly as you said, it's a very young specialty. And compared to all the other specialties we have in medicine, significantly younger. And number of people involved is less, obviously. But at the same time, it is increasingly popular. And it is beginning to become quite competitive and very popular. Just because of the nature of the job, which makes it quite exciting, varied, and majority of us end up doing portfolio jobs, which is a mix of different things, all related to sports and exercise.
That's a really good history, actually. Because you said 1981 was when the MSc kind of started with John King, and 2019 is when the master's program for sports dentistry started in the UCL Eastman, and I was lucky enough to be on that first cohort. Fast forward 44 years, if my maths is right, we're here now where sports and exercise medicine is very much the forefront of a lot of teams, elite athletes, individuals. But if we go back halfway, so in about 2006, you said there was an improved standalone sports and exercise medicine consultancy pathway. For us sports dentists looking ahead, hopefully it's not going to take us 44 years to be in the position that sports medicine is now. So maybe jumping the questions a little bit early, but I kind of want to get to the crux of it now. For us to fast forward and get to where your specialty is at now, what does sports dentistry need to do to kind of get to that level? Is it more about being involved with the sports medics and having people like yourself who are very proactive and who are very enthusiastic about having people like ourselves involved as part of your team, and also including other healthcare professionals as well? What would you, if you could rewind to 1981 and think, okay, let's try and do this a little bit quicker, what would that look like to you from a sports medicine point of view, first of all, then potentially what we as sports dentists could then do? Because obviously there is some similarities there, but from a sports medicine point of view, what could you have done, or what could have been done to accelerate that process a bit faster?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, it's very personal opinion, obviously. I think that the bottom line is demand and supply. I think the important thing is to identify that demand, put it out there, make sure that people recognize that it is an important part of this whole discipline, and then, provide solutions and say, well, these are the problems, these are the issues, this is the demand, and this is how we're going to address that. And this is how we're going to approach it, our program, and why it is important. I mean, as you rightly said, I've been involved with sports dentistry colleagues, for a little while now. I've had the pleasure, the opportunity of, speaking at a number of conferences that you guys had set up. And in my opinion, in my personal practice, to some extent, I can tell you that before getting involved with the community, with the sports dentistry community, there was always this feeling that it's a good thing to have around. It would be always good to have a dentist around. It's always good to have, some sort of program around. But it's only since I really got involved with your community that I realized it's not just good, it's necessary. It is an important part of the whole package. It's an important part of performance. It's an important part of well-being. It's an important part of health and safety of athletes and how they can develop their performance, improve their performance as well. And that's why, say, in my case, I've been trying to push for it as well. And I may mention that later, in my role as the CMO of the British Basketball Professional League, Super League Basketball. I think we are probably one of the, first professional leagues that in my medical requirements that I put out this year, I've put specific recommendation for dental hygiene checks for athletes, as well as, screening, as part of the screening, as well as use of mouth guards, both as a means of kind of preventive for injuries, but also to improve performance, to improve posture, and also to reduce the impacts of head injuries and concussions, because there's ample evidence for all of those. And so that's something I've included in the medical requirements for this professional league as of this year, which to my knowledge, hasn't been there before. And I think a similar kind of approach, by getting involved with the people, with the right people who can, promote you, who can promote the need, who can, bring it to everyone's attention and then act on it and provide solutions, would be probably the main kind of principle, that the key to getting things moving faster. As you said, in our case, it took more than 40 years. I hadn't done the math myself, but yeah, I mean, you're right, more than 40 years. And I remember when I first started in professional football, and that was before sports medicine was identified or approved as a specialty. I remember that, the team I went to, there were things going on there. There were people saying, well, why do we need a doctor around? Is he here just to look beautiful and say I'm a doctor? Or, that was the kind of attitude. And, so I've seen all of that, been through all of that. And now we've come to a place that no professional team can do without a doctor. And many of them have got multiple doctors, for different age groups, different levels, different training, programs. So from a time that, we were looked at as a kind of, unnecessary luxury to the time that you've become a necessity. And I think the reason for that is people like myself and others who went out there and essentially proved that there is a need. There is a need, and then following that need, there is a demand and the necessity and the fact that we have to act on it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would like, if we step back, maybe just, you mentioned that when you first went into a professional football club, like you see a lot of good work that's been done now. Even seen this week FIFA posting about they were doing some training with field of play and things like that. What was your role when you first went in, like compared to now? Like we think of the preseason medicals, we think of the medicals when players are getting transferred in or transferred out, and the field of play stuff. Was there only a little bit of that happening at that stage, or what was happening? What was your first actual working experience? What were the types of things that you were doing when you first got involved?
Well, things have significantly evolved since that time. I mean, at that point, your primary role was to deal with acute injuries more than anything else, and also be like a point of contact, like a general practitioner, to deal with general health inquiries, be it from a sore throat all the way to everything else, and, kind of being that person. But over the years, it has significantly changed. Now, as you mentioned, the elements to do with screening, for example, it is a big thing. It's a massive thing in professional sports right now. And the screening is not just about, because the impression people outside the field might have of, medicals and screening is like a pass and fail test. We often hear in the news that this player failed their medical or passed their medical. Whereas in reality, a medical screening is an opportunity as the first contact with an athlete. And that's when you realistically build that relationship and build that rapport. And then you also can use that as an opportunity to, for education, for teaching, for, giving them information. And at the same time, giving them reassurances that a lot of what we do is not about failing them, is not about finding problems. Majority of it, what we do is realistically about finding the things that we need to work on going forward. So when an athlete joins a team, we would like to know their background. We would like to know whether they have any active injuries, whether they've had any recurrent injuries. And then our team can have a plan for it going forward. So we can have a prehab program for that specific player. Or if there are any, performance lapses, then we can plan for it. And that's the way we approach it these days, to medical screening. And, our role within teams is very much, an advisory role. So, I mean, over the number of years that I've done medical screenings, I personally, I don't know, maybe other colleagues did, differ and, say different thing. But I personally have never gone to a manager or, to a team owner or executive and say, this player cannot, join the team, or this player fails, or, what I do, I advise them. I tell them, well, these are the things that I think we need to work on. These are the time scales that I think, it's going to take for us to get this player to that specific point. And these are potential risks. And then the decision eventually is with the management and, the decision that they make between themselves and the player. And then we support that. As a medical team, we support that decision. I mean, if they take on a specific player, then we stick with the program that we have set for them to support them going forward, to minimize the risk of injuries and to make sure that they can have their best performance, really. And so that's one part of this whole role. And obviously the other part is the day-to-day work with the team. The day-to-day side of things is very much around, again, advising on the training programs, on the, training schedule, when a player can be available, cannot be available, different rehab and prehab programs that players might have, specific needs that they may have that you oversee and supervise and make sure that they happen. There's all the kind of, admin side of things, liaison with people outside the club, with other specialties, other facilities, imaging, other colleagues, and also kind of ongoing education of the medical staff. So these are kind of, in summary, I would say in a nutshell, the roles that you would have as a medic within a team. Whereas in the past, it was very limited. It was limited to dealing with injuries on the day of a game, for example. And now it has evolved into a completely different beast, I would say.
And do you find, I'm just thinking when you were speaking about your relationship with the likes of the manager and stuff, it brought back a memory of quite a high profile incident between at one of the London football clubs between a manager and a sports medic during a match where there was disagreement. Now, obviously, that manager's a very colourful character and he's one of them colourful managers. Do you think that would still have the potential to happen today? That sort of conflict from the manager?
Obviously, for obvious reasons, I will not comment on the specific example that you mentioned. I mean, it was a very sensitive thing that went on for a little while. But in general, there is always that possibility because of the nature of the job. It's a very tense and intense and kind of highly stressful environment. You're dealing with, high performance environment. Everybody is, in a way ready to go out there. Everyone wants to perform. Players' positions are always at risk. It's enough someone is injured for a few days, someone else comes in and they're better, then they're out. So there's always these kind of things going on in the background. For managers as well, there is a lot of stress, that they're under immense stress. I mean, media and all that side of it to one side, but then dealing with the owners, with the club hierarchies is another side of it. Dealing with individual players, their different personalities, their different backgrounds. So it's a highly stressful environment. And there's always a possibility for things like that to happen. But one thing that is important in the background is to establish that relationship as a medic with the management early on, as you get to know each other, because, you may enter a new club or a new manager might enter your club. And it's important you establish that relationship. You let them know about your practices and you listen to them and hear what they want to happen as well. And try to somehow meet in the middle and make things work. And that's where I would say the role of education comes into play. And, education is sometimes formal, sometimes informal. You could gather a group of players and some coaching staff and go through things with them as a presentation, or you could just have informal conversations with the management, with the coaching staff, and kind of let them know where you stand, what are your principles, how you're going to behave, how things going to be managed if certain incidents happen. Essentially as a medic, and again, I have to add that this is personal opinion, and I'm not judging anyone, or everybody would be different, but my personal approach to it is, within an elite sporting environment, I would still very much stick to the same principles of good medical practice. I would still stick with the same ethical and moral principles regardless. And my reason for it is, if because of those I'm kicked out of a team, I know I'm still a good doctor and I still have clinics, I still have other places to go to, and if that is the reason that I'm leaving a team, so be it. These are the gray areas in elite sporting environments. The ethics of your practice, how you're going to play around that, and how you make sure that you are doing the right thing at all times. Making sure that the player, although you may be employed by the club, the player is your main client, as if you are employed by NHS, but your patient is the center. And that's what matters. And you deal with your player as your patient, as your client. So you are their advocate. You are there to support them. And as I say, it can be at times very difficult for obvious reasons. It can be very difficult. And at times you end up having some very difficult conversations. But that's the nature of the job, really. So, I mean, although it may look different from outside, it's not all, glamour and fun and, being around players. There's a lot of, high-stake decisions that you make.
Definitely. I think a lot of the stuff you've just mentioned there resonates quite close to home. A good friend of mine, James Robson, who you'll know, who worked with Scottish Rugby for a number of years, said a word exactly what you just said there, which was necessary. That you felt that a sports dentist is necessary to be as part of your team. And it's really interesting to hear that that's coming from a high profile figure like yourself and from James Robson as well. And that's something that we're trying to get across, is that it's really important that you have people around you who value what you do and also feel like you are an integral part of it. And the evolution of sports medicine, from what you've just described there, from only being there for acute injuries and for illnesses, to then going to screening and then going to education and prevention, really is what we've been talking about in the podcast since episode 1. And it's actually really nice to hear that you're saying exactly the same things, because sports medicine and sports dentistry are so similar in so many ways. And even what you've just talked about there in terms of dealing with athletes and making sure clinically you are still doing right by morals and ethics. Because just because you're looking after high profile athletes doesn't mean you treat them any differently. You should be treating them just the same way that you'd be treating your family, your friends, because for me, that's how I try and work, is that if I can do it that way, it's very difficult to then go home at night and say, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, just because you're dealing with some of the best superstars in the world. And I suppose that's what makes it even more difficult, is that some people would just bow down and say, yes, I'll just do what you say, but you have to have that ingrained moral kind of chimp on your shoulder, just saying that actually you should be doing what you've been taught to do.
Absolutely, completely agree. And a lot of that comes with experience and being around as well, and finding your foot in that environment. I can imagine, say, for example, a younger, less experienced doctor getting into that environment would be quite, it's an exciting thing to do, and you would want to be in the good books all the time. But in reality, that doesn't happen. You're not in the good books all the time, and you have to be prepared for that, because you have to stick, by your principles, and you have to do the right thing, do what you've been trained to do. And absolutely, as you said, at times it can become difficult.
But it's really interesting just about the stuff that you've been able to bring into GB Basketball with advice. I've seen recently there that you brought out some advice as well around concussion, which is something that we've done quite a bit of with the help with rugby. A lot of the sports dentists have been able to help out World Rugby and implementing instrumented mouthguard by helping with the scans and the fitting of the mouthguards for the teams to implement that with the players. So it's really interesting to see you've been able to develop that into basketball where there's a focus on concussion, where it's maybe something that's overlooked, because we see quite a lot of examples, particularly from our colleagues in the US, of high profile basketball athletes at college level or the NBA that are still not wearing mouth guards, and they're losing teeth, whether that's an elbow or an arm, or they're hitting the floor. There's a number of examples that have went around in my WhatsApp groups over the last year. So it's not even like a small amount per year, and that's the only ones that are being picked up by the TV, the TV that are showing these. Yeah. How have you found that in basketball? Was that a challenge to increase awareness around concussion in basketball? Was that something like head injuries in basketball, which would include as well any sort of old facial trauma injuries? Was that something there was always sort of awareness about, or is this something that you have had to try to increase awareness and educate and bring these guidelines in?
Well, overall, in the kind of medical community involved with basketball or any elite sports, there is that awareness just because of all the work that's happened over the past few years, in all different sports. But has it been the same, amongst people who actually run the sport? I would have said no. I mean, it's something that we still, I've been working on and I still have to work on to make sure that there is that increased understanding about concussion, about its importance, how it is managed, and potentially look into, in the future, change some rules and regulations around that as well. So it's going to be a very kind of step-by-step gradual process. The fact that, this year we put out a basketball-specific concussion protocol has already attracted a lot of attention. And the fact that, I've started speaking about importance of things like mouth guards, for example, in the context of concussion, again has attracted attention. And, as with any other change of behavior type kind of approach, the first step is to bring this into attention, try to make people realize the need and the importance of this, and then start making changes. So realistically, we are not in an ideal place yet, but we are moving towards that. And I think we have taken some really big steps towards that, which, had been, I wouldn't say ignored, but had not been really addressed over the past number of years. And the same thing applies across the board, even in Europe and other countries. So concussion is becoming more of a subject that people talk about. But, like anything else, you're looking into culture and behavior change, which is a very difficult thing. If something is ingrained in you and it's something that you haven't noticed before, it is very difficult to make that change. I think we have done some good job around it, and I'm very positive. I'm very hopeful that it's not going to take long before we move towards the ideal place that we all want to be.
In sports dentistry, it's not just about treating injuries. It's about optimizing oral health for peak performance.
That's right, because when athletes push their limits, every detail matters, even their oral health.
That's why the Sports Dentistry podcast is being powered by Philips, true innovators in oral health technology.
Philips Sonicare toothbrushes use advanced sonic technology to disrupt plaque biofilm, removing up to 20 times more plaque than a manual brush.
And that's critical for athletes with high carb diets, dry mouth, and frequent energy supplements, there are a greater risk of caries and gum disease.
Philips backs evidence-based dentistry, giving us tools that fit perfectly into performance-driven treatment plans.
So whether you're helping your athletes recover, protect, or perform,
elevate your protocol with Philips.
With that include, I didn't get a good chance to have a look at the guidelines, but with basketball, would it be a recommendation in basketball to introduce something similar like they would have in rugby, where they have the head injury assessment and the player steps out for 10 minutes or a certain amount of time? Is that the kind of thing that you would suggest, that maybe something similar, maybe not just exact like for like, but something similar to be applied in basketball as well?
Yeah, very similar. Yes. So essentially, we follow the principles of the concussion consensus, the international consensus on concussion. So we follow the same principles about identifying, managing, and kind of rehab and return to play kind of principles. We just have made it more basketball specific in terms of the kind of training that they would do as part of their return. Taking note of the regulations in basketball and how that would apply, to concussion management. So realistically, the principles are very much the same, but you've made it more appropriate for this environment, realistically. Now, whether or not we will eventually move towards like instrumented mouth guards and that kind of, technological side of things, I think we still have a bit of, we're a bit away from that. But hopefully that is the idea. That is eventually where I'm hoping we can get to.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just a mouth guard use in general in basketball, I got a comment from a sports medic that works with one of the professional rugby teams, and he's been with them for a long while, and his comment was he didn't realize that many players didn't wear mouth guards until this new rule came in where it was mandatory to wear the instrument mouth guards. Have you noticed mouth guard use in basketball? Is it common? Is it something that still needs to be promoted? How have you noticed it in basketball? Just normal mouth guard use?
Well, in reality, it is very sporadic, and many players. I'm not quite sure why, to be honest with you, but many of them don't like using mouth guards. For various reasons. Some of them find it a bit difficult, and there are some who use it, but then you can see that it's hanging out of their mouth, and they're just holding it with their lips rather than having it in place. From what I have observed, and it is again a personal observation, the more experienced ones usually prefer to have it, and they usually use that properly. And I think that comes from what they've seen over the years and the experiences they've had over the years. So to them, it is more of a necessity. For many others, it may not just be like that yet. And I think part of the trick here is to get those more experienced players who probably will have, that the word will go, much better than a doctor's word in the team, to get them to promote this and, to get them on your side, to go to talk to people, say why they're using it, and try to encourage them to go and have their own custom-made mouth guards.
It's like when you've got superstar players wearing a mouth guard or promoting some sort of fashion accessory or boot or type of hairstyle or something, that's where recreational players start to take notice and like, oh, well, if X, Y, and Z are using it or wearing it, then I'll wear it. And we've mentioned it quite a few times before where something bad needs to happen to somebody for then stand up and take notice.
Yeah.
For a change to happen. And actually just recently there was the young boy in Australia who was batting in the nets cricket, and he ended up getting the same injury that Phil Hughes got over a decade ago and sadly passed away. And that's when Phil Hughes, when it happened to Australia, Phil Hughes got hit, they ended introducing the stem guards for the helmets. And it's not mandatory it's not mandated to have the stem guards, but then the young boy, he was 16, I think, and he was in the Victorian pathway, New South Wales pathway, just warming up before the game, and he just missed it. And unfortunately, that's what happened. But now that's the second time it's happened. It's probably likely that they will then start making stem guards mandatory. And cricket's been around for a long time. Injuries happen, but unfortunately for a death to happen twice in a relatively short space of time, kind of a decade is a short space of time in the grand scheme of things, that's going to then change people's perception, and then that leads on quite nicely to mouth guards, and obviously not to that degree in terms of, God forbid that happening to somebody, but losing teeth and lacerations. And it's the accumulation of those events happening to higher profile players people will stand up and take notice, and it'll become more of a, you must wear it sort of approach.
Absolutely. No, completely agree. I mean, as you rightly say, it's a bit unfortunate that it would take something serious like that to, for people to take note. But that is true, and I think that's the fact of life. That's how we humans essentially operate, unfortunately. And I completely agree. To give you another example, not specifically about head injuries, concussion. Last year in British basketball, in the kind of youth development kind of squad, there was a cardiac arrest. And obviously the past few years I've been pushing for, being trained in managing cardiac arrest on the field of play, the importance of having AED courtside, not somewhere far that you need to go and look for. I've put all of those as part of protocols that are important in the league. And, most clubs are trying to follow that. And this young player had a cardiac arrest on court. Thankfully, they managed it quite well, and he returned. And apparently, as you said, he was dead for a little while, but he came back. And so they managed to apply the AED, do the compressions, the CPR going, and he came back. And a month later or so, he went back to visit the club and all of that. But what I'm going to say is an incident like that suddenly raised a lot of attention, and everybody was thinking, well, what if something like this happens at our club or, on our court? Are we ready for it? And then that's when everybody will go and revisit their emergency action plans, their setup, availability of equipment, skills they have. Do they need to top up their skills? So pretty much similar to the example that you just gave me, something happened and then suddenly everybody started to revisit everything that we had discussed before. Thankfully, fortunately, in this case, it ended up well, unlike the other examples. But still, I'm afraid it had to happen for people to take note.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because even locally here in Ireland, there was a local player just 2 weeks ago, also under 16, who had a cardiac incident on the pitch, and he died twice, but he's been able to make a recovery. And I think the work that's one area that's really developed, is having AEDs available and having people trained in that area. It's something that other aspects of athlete health and medicine that we can maybe look. Obviously, it's a completely different thing between taking a cardiac event and dying compared to like a chipped tooth. Honestly, it's still, so it's easier to maybe look at. It's a much more severe outcome that could happen there. It's easier to be able to implement that, but the ability to get that implemented is maybe a good example of how we can get some of these other things that we're trying to improve, the likes of the concussions and or trauma support or facial trauma support and things like that. It's maybe a good example of how that awareness of getting AEDs and getting people trained and being ready for that one-off instance that might happen with your players at the match that you're attending. I think that's because definitely, if we look back maybe a decade and definitely 2 decades ago, that wasn't a common thing to have. A lot of these players, they could have unfortunately not have been as lucky.
No, absolutely. That is very true. I mean, the screening that you put in place beforehand, and then the preparedness and having the skills and equipment that is necessary. On that same note, I mean, we had obviously earlier on we had a chat about sports dentists within the elite sport environment. Personally, I think this is one of the aspects that you guys need to prove to the medical team that you get involved with, that you're able to help with, you're able to manage, whether it's the airway side of things when you're dealing with a cardiac arrest. And that's how you integrate into that bigger medical team. That's, I'm here as a member of your team who is capable of dealing with those acute injuries, coming on the pitch with you and help you with those stuff. And I've got the right training for that. I think that is another aspect of the thing that you can look into. And I think along the same lines, we have this course coming on, in Dusseldorf in a few weeks, the congress that we have. So the SOFTI course, which is Sport on the Field Trauma Emergencies Management. And I'm very pleased to see that for the first time we have sports dentists involved with that. I mean, John, thankfully, is going to be there and he's going to lecture on aspects of trauma management. And I think that's how it has to be, really.
One of my first experiences is field of play.
Can I just say something quickly? You say that you say that John's going to be there, but John's got a history of sometimes being in the city or where the Congress is, but not actually being at the Congress. So you just need to make sure.
I've seen that as well.
That he knows.
But now I know. But fortunately, the Summit course is on day one of a 3-day conference. If it was on the day 3 of the conference, it might be a higher
no promises.
Yeah, but it's on day 1. But definitely the point earlier, one of my first experiences as a field of play dentist was at the London Olympics, and that was a great experience where before every shift, the athlete medical team, including the dentist, did these role plays. So everybody knew what their role was if one of these incidents happened. And as you said, and I know there's a lot of good work being done up with Umar and his colleagues in Scotland when they're working with Scottish Rugby. They do the scrum caps the same as the medical team would do, and they'd integrate. And it's probably something that we're looking, as you said, for sports dentistry to grow, particularly as a field of play additive, where we're supporting the field of play team, that having these skill sets that aren't necessarily just dental really helps support that. But that's a nice wee segue on to the conference. So we spoke about earlier about the importance of this relationship for sports dentists, this relationship with sports medics. And this is what the European Association for Sports Dentistry has been able to achieve. It's been able to achieve this close working relationship with the European College of Sports and Exercise Physicians. Just give us a little bit of a background into the European College of Sports and Exercise Physicians. When did that get started and how has that developed?
Well, ECOSEB, European College of Sports and Exercise Physicians, realistically was first formed by, you probably know Nikos Maliaropoulos, who's now the Secretary General of the college, together, with the support of Professor John King at the time. And the idea around it is very much to have a group of highly skilled, trained professionals who practice in sports medicine across Europe to deliver primarily educational type services, but at the same time ensuring that the specialty of sports medicine goes from strength to strength across Europe, try to kind of come with suggestions and proposals for standardization of the sports medicine practice across Europe, and build up that big network between all these different practitioners. So in a way, we are lucky that, amongst our membership, we have a number of very high profile practitioners in sports medicine involved with various, professional sporting clubs and different sporting disciplines, as well as very high profile orthopedic surgeons who are involved with sports medicine. And as part of, again, what we do from an educational aspect of things, we have these 2 yearly congresses, which, each year it is in a different country. And where we gather, very high profile speakers, we run different workshops, we go through the latest advancements and developments in sports medicine. We do a lot of teaching and training. There's opportunity for students and people who are interested in to come and present or do poster sessions, come and speak, and or just simply attend and learn from the leaders in the field. Another kind of initiative that we work on as well is that kind of field of play, emergencies and trauma management. So we have developed this SOFTI course, or Sport on the Field Trauma and Emergencies course, management course, which essentially deals with the aspects of acute trauma management or emergency management that we just spoke about. How to deal with significant trauma, how to deal with life-threatening or limb-threatening emergencies. And in my opinion, it is an extremely important part of practice of sports medicine for whoever is involved with elite sports or field of play type work. Because what you do on a field of play is significantly different to what you would do, in a local A&E hospital or a hospital or trauma kind of department. Because unlike a hospital, you don't have access to the range of services, the range of specialties. You cannot just pick up the phone and, run a trauma call and everybody is down there, or, just do the arrest call and everybody is down there it doesn't work like that. You're in a completely different environment. You're out there on the field, different weather conditions, different, field of play conditions, and the different kind of stress. I mean, all people being around you with cameras and, people looking at you from their homes and, trying to kind of judge you, what you're doing. The people that you have around you, or have different skill sets. So you have to know that and be able to, allocate them appropriate roles. So this is an extremely important part of this whole thing, which I think still needs standardization across Europe. And that's what we are trying to do. We are also kind of rewriting our course book, or the SOFTI course book, which is going to be like a major reference for these kind of incidents and management of trauma and emergencies. So that's one aspect of the work. And the other thing we are at the moment working on, we are running kind of projects about realistically to understand better about the training and practice of sports medicine in different countries in Europe. Because at the moment we know that there's a huge variability there. Some countries have got established specialty training programs, some of the others don't. Some of the others just, people are doing the job just because they're interested in doing that. And we are trying to collect as much information as we can about that, and then come up with kind of European consensus about the principles and the basics that are needed for someone to be involved with sports medicine. So that's essentially, I would say in a nutshell that the range of activities that EcoSep does at the moment.
It's really quite extensive. And when was it first formed? How long has it been up and running at this stage?
I think we have to ask Nikos about that. I know it's been many years ago. I think it's been more than 20, 25 years ago. Something like that, yes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because it's really quite a big conference at the moment. I know we've had to use quite big venues over the last few conferences that have come together, particularly if you look at the Athens conference and the size of the venue that we had to use there to facilitate. So it's just interesting that's because I know at the moment there's quite a lot of sports dentistry associations getting set up around different countries, and they're all trying to promote and it's maybe still quite small numbers. So it's quite interesting to hear how even in the sports medicine world, it's took time to develop, to grow. And that's a good example for us as sports dentists to use to be able to just be consistent and keep growing and keep educating and keep that awareness. And then hopefully a decade or 2 decades down the line, we're kind of hopefully close to where sports medicine is now.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of persistence and thick skin, you know. There's going to be, you know, loads of hurdles. People would stand in your way. People would say no all the time, especially if you're introducing something new. And, you know, there may be rivalries here and there that you have to kind of stay your course and be persistent in what you're going to do.
That's good. So I'm really looking forward to Dusseldorf, catching up with everyone. It is really grouped. We've talked about it before, me and Umar, about how one of the most important parts of a conference is networking.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yes. That's probably one of the most important bits. Networking in and outside the Congress.
yeah.
It's funny. It's good that John says that, because that's where things are born, and that's where this podcast was born out of a conversation that John and I had last November at the first UK Sports Dentistry Conference. You know, and here we are now, almost 30 episodes in, and having such distinguished guests like yourself coming on there, just touching on the field of play role for medics and dentists. Like John said, we do the scrum caps, so the pre-hospital care course here. And that very much shows the medical team, the medical staff, that we are trained to a sufficient enough level that we can be pitch side with the medical team in case something was to happen, that they know that we've got the adequate training. And that's something that I tell people who want to get into sports dentistry, that try and look at doing a course like that, because that shows that you're willing to put yourself out of your comfort zone and show other medical professionals that I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to put myself in a position where I'm not comfortable, but I want to do it because I want to be part of the team. And that's something that's really helped me, not just in my clinical day-to-day practice, because you are in tough situations when you're trying to deal with certain situations, but you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that you're able to facilitate and help grow that relationship and that strength between us as dentists, sports dentists, and people like yourself who are in the sports medical field. And it's great that they're doing that in Dusseldorf. I won't be there for day one, and I will be there in day two. And John's promised me he'll still be there when I arrive. So if you could do me a big favor and just keep a tab on him until I arrive, that would be
great. You do know Dusseldorf has apparently got the longest bar, because every bar is like connected. So it's meant to be like a mile long of bars that they have down in the town. Apparently it's known for technically having the longest bar.
Yeah, but not during the day. I need you to still be at the conference during the day, so you can't start early doors.
Yeah, I think we got the idea where we're gonna find him.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to catch up. Amir, it's been fantastic to have you on as the podcast, and thanks so much. I know you had a busy day, and you have to navigate through the joys of London and commuting through London. So it's been great to have you on this evening and give us an insight into yourself and into sports medicine and how that's developed. I'm really looking forward to catching up in person in a few weeks.
Absolutely. No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm really grateful for you having me here, you know, giving me the opportunity, as you said, to establish these relationships. And obviously at the same time, you know, as kind of a final word here, you know, to kind of promote the Congress as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the dates, I think, were
the 20th to 22nd.
20th to 22nd of November in Dusseldorf. You can find the information on ECOSEP website, and there's also an ECOSEP2025.com website, which is the Congress website. You can get all the other information there, and would be great to have as many, you know, sports dentists, sports medics, and enthusiasts in that Congress.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So make sure not to miss it.
Thanks very much, Amir, for your time. It's been brilliant, and yeah, we'll reconvene in a couple of weeks in Dusseldorf.
Absolutely. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
We are delighted to have Ionate as a sponsor for the Sports Dentistry podcast. Are you looking for a water bottle that's built to keep up with your active lifestyle? Look no further than Ionate, the totally leak-proof water bottles with triple lock technology to prevent spills no matter where you're headed. With a simple one-touch opening mechanism, you can sip on the go without hassle. Plus, Ionate's sleek, modern designs are not only functional but can be personalized just for you. Made from high-quality steel, these bottles are easy to clean and best of all, they're sustainable. From 320 mils to 1200 mils, Ionate has the perfect size for you, whether you're just out for a jog or going on a long hike. And it doesn't stop at water bottles. Ionate also has travel mugs and flasks to keep your drinks just right wherever you are. Ionate is the official water bottle supplier to the British and Irish Lions on their tour to Australia this summer, and are the official water bottle supplier to the NFL, so you know you're getting the best. I have been using their bottles for a long time now and cannot recommend them highly enough. So head over to www.ionate.co.uk to get your hands on the best bottles in the business, bar none. Now back to the pod.
That was a really interesting chat we had there with Amir, and you can see the great work that's been done by EF4SD over the years, where we have someone like Amir who has been advocating for sports dentistry in a sport that maybe it's not one of the high sort of sports in the UK at the moment. Obviously, soccer would be the most played. We talk a lot about rugby, but basketball, when we think of basketball, we tend to think more of the NBA and maybe Eastern Europe. You would see them in the Olympics. There'd be some of the stronger teams there. You don't tend to think of GB being a big basketball nation, but we can just see how much work has been done from Amir. I've just seen recently there, I forgot to mention it when we were chatting to them, about plans being passed for a new 15,000-seater basketball arena in London. So basketball seems to be really taking off, and we can hear there from all the hard work Amir has put in about getting these guidelines in, and the recent ones about concussion and about his recommendation for mouth guards and things like that. How much is going on in the world of basketball in the UK?
Not just in the UK, but it's growing worldwide, because Lauren said in New Zealand, basketball is one of the sports that's starting to grow quite a fair bit, and you know, it's challenging things like rugby and cricket out there. But if you're saying that they're going to be building a 15,000-seater stadium in London, I mean, that would easily sell out when big NBA teams come. Do you know how they play these games in Europe and in the UK and in Australia, wherever else they're playing? So I do think that does take somebody like Amir, who's got a wealth of experience. I mean, he said he's worked at the London Olympics, the Paralympics. He's been working with Crystal Palace, and now he's obviously the CMO of GB Basketball. And it was great to listen to him and where sports medicine first started. He said back in 1981, that's when the first MSc, Sports Med MSc course started. Now we're talking 44 years later that it's really now well and truly seen as the forefront and integral part of athletes and organizations. What I'm looking at thinking is, I don't want it to be 44 years before we're in that same position, because that's too damn long, and I'll be 84 then. I don't want that to be happening. So they obviously...
You're being very optimistic. I don't think I'm going to see 70 never mind.
Got to be optimistic. But I think that's one of the questions that I did ask him, was like, what do we need to do to kind of learn from what they've done, how they've gone about things over that period of time? Because we've spoken to our colleagues in the US, and even our colleagues here who've been in the game for quite a while, who still feel it's in its infancy. There's just something not right about that, right? We need to change that, and we are changing it. I really feel this podcast and the people that we've got on and the waves that we're starting to make is really starting to take notice. People are starting to stand up, and we're having really high profile people like James Robson and Amir Pakravan. We've got other sports medics lined up as well to come on. They are willing to give us a platform to speak with them, which is all we can ask for.
Yeah, I think they are the gatekeepers for us. You know, they've already done the hard yards. They've got established there, and in a lot of cases, they're the decision makers when it comes to athlete health and support that's around that. So the fact that we've already, on a number of fronts, been able to build really good relationships with some of the top sports medics about is probably going to help sports dentistry get there a wee bit quicker.
Yeah. Do you know there's a word, I wrote this down, that he said, which is exactly the same word that James Robson said. He said the word necessary. He said a sports dentist is a necessary member of the team. And that's coming from two of arguably the well-established sports medics in the UK. That must mean something. They're not just saying that because we know them or we're friends with them. They're obviously publicly letting people know that that's what they believe. And it's because of people like that who have that forward thinking or who had that forward thinking that have allowed us to kind of be part of their team and allow us to integrate. But I still just see that as a stepping stone. We need many, many more clinicians like that. Certainly the newer sports meds who are coming through, I do feel that they are more receptive and they are more inclined to allow us to be part of the team. And like you now being part of the team locally, the rugby team, which you said that it was the first time you've just kind of got it started, with Ulster. So, but that's taken a while for you to do that. And you've been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, too long. So I've been in sports dentistry for 15 years anyway. But I think it just takes time. We're not going to get acceptance right across the board from day one. And it may be, like we've talked about it before, how luck is a combination of preparation and opportunity. And I think that's what happened with Ulster Rugby, and very fortunate for Mike Webb, who's the Chief Medical Officer of Ulster Rugby, to take the initiative to bring support in for match days. After him seeing the great work that you guys are doing in Scotland, but also having recently some really bad oral trauma experiences from their players. Now, I first would have met Mike 15 years ago when I was chatting to him about performance mouth guards, and I'd been in Ulster Rugby to do a few performance mouth guards, and that didn't really stick, and we didn't really develop it on more than providing a few of the international lads with performance mouth guards and seeing how they felt about it. And it was 15 years later then when Mike reached out to say that, it'd be great if we could just try to put some sort of dental support up. So things don't happen overnight. And I think we just got to be patient. We just got to keep pushing, and we've got to put our points forward. And whenever the right time comes up, whatever that is, whether it's a sports medic that sees what's going on somewhere else and maybe talks to a colleague that has sports dentistry support and says, well, you need to get this in. And then he goes to reach out to whoever's there locally to that team is ready and experienced and able to help that out. I think that's what we just got to do bit by bit. We're just going to get there till it becomes just the norm, to become just a normal part of the athlete setup. And there's always going to be barriers, and there's barriers with all aspects of athlete support, particularly financial barriers. So the financial barriers for these professional teams, you talk about them being professional, but some of these sports don't have this excess cash to splash out, and they're already on a tight budget and things like that. So there's always going to be them barriers of getting involved, and we've got to look at creative ways and how we can maybe overcome that. And there's plenty of other obstacles in our way, but we just got to work together and keep promoting, keep raising awareness, keep putting the data. We talk about data as well, putting the data, the research together. And then whenever organizations, sports clubs or teams are ready to get a sports dentist involved, that we have the ability then to help out.
Yeah, we just have to keep pushing the boat and keep seeing where it can take us little by little. It's a compound effect. We've talked about this several times, compound effect, slowly, just everybody doing their bit, everybody doing the hard yards and making waves wherever that is or however that is, and gradually through good word of mouth and data collection and research and papers. We know that there's a big special edition coming out of the BDJ next year, the Sports Dentistry edition. That will obviously make a lot of people stand up and take notice the fact that there's going to be one whole edition on purely sports dentistry. And I think that really is a statement to say that, we are here and we're here to stay. I still get people messaging me saying, I didn't really know sports dentistry existed. Can I get involved in it? What do I need to do? The good thing is there's so many resources available now, and through various channels where people can get their foot in the door, and the WhatsApp groups are brilliant. There's a lot of good connections on there. People not just in the UK but worldwide in terms of what they're doing too. So collectively, we just got to keep trying to push. As you said, not all sports have the financial freedom of having us involved with regards to being pitch side or court side all the time. However, we know that a lot of this sports dentistry related work that we do is unpaid and we do it for the love of it, but that's not always going to be the case. And I really think that you have to put the hard yards in and do the kind of doggy work and the groundwork to reap the benefits of what is to happen in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. If we were getting paid for sports dentistry, I think we would be way off in the sunset on a yacht somewhere with the amount of hours that we have put into it over the years. We'd be sitting in the Mediterranean on a yacht somewhere if we had to be getting paid for it.
Yes, I mean, we're not going to be getting there anytime soon, but you know, we can dream. One day, you never know.
Yeah, but it's great. It's the experience we've talked about before. It's the experience. It's the love of sport. I would say if I wasn't helping out, I'd be sitting watching sport all weekend anyway. And every day I'm constantly looking to see scores and keeping up with all different sports that I've been interested in. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting and not only just helping out in teams and stuff. Look at all the relationships that we've been able to build with fellow sports dentists that have a like mindset, and we're leading now up until we've been talking all year about how Dusseldorf is going to be a great celebration of sports dentistry at the end of the year, and it's next week. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great to catch up with everyone, see what everyone's doing, hear some great presentations, stumble over ourselves as we try to do some live podcasting. Taking ourselves completely out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, taking ourselves out of comfort zone. We've done a lot of research on it, so it's just got to work. If it doesn't work, we'll just blame the equipment or we'll blame somebody else anyway. But I had a look at the weather.
Blame the Wi-Fi. I always blame the Wi-Fi.
Blame the Wi-Fi. Now, I looked at the weather. Okay, are you ready for this?
That's
Dusseldorf. Okay, next Wednesday. Are you ready?
I'm not sure.
Highs of 5 degrees Celsius.
5 degrees.
Lows of 2, but it gets better. Thursday, low of 1, high of 4.
Oh, I've dropped the degrees. And what about the weekend when we were walking about in t-shirts?
It's not got that far yet because it's only going to Friday, which is 1 and 5. So
the weather changes not often anyway. So
and it says that at the moment it's above average by 5 degrees.
Oh, it's just currently above average. I might pack the ski gear. I might just pretend I'm going to Murrayfield and get the ski socks in and the ski jacket and the ski gloves, I guess.
If I don't see you in a t-shirt and shorts, then I'll think something's wrong, because if you're going wrapped up, then we know that it's cold.
Yeah, but then my excuse for t-shirts, shorts would be I'm just getting warmed up for Cape Town 2 weeks later. So,
oh, that's right. You just stay in the same gear to then. But Cape Town, actually, while we're on that, Cape Town, this is even better. Highs of 31.
Extremes.
Lows of 16. So,
yeah. So we'll get warmed up. We'll get warmed up.
Well, one thing at a time. Let's deal with Dusseldorf and get that cracking and really have a good time with that. But I'm looking forward to hearing people's thoughts on Amir's episode here. And again, we're grateful for his time. He's a busy guy and lots to take home from there. And we will continue to bring the finest of guests. We have got some incredible guests lined up, both dentists, medics, athletes, you name it, we've got it.
Yeah, it's definitely, we've been on the ball this time. We had a few hiccups in the summer with our schedules, but we're back to these weekly releases, and we've got lots of guests lined up, and we're pretty good the whole way to Christmas at this stage.
Yeah.
Don't want to jinx this, but I think we might be getting the hang of this crack.
Slowly but surely, my friends. So now that you've got internet properly and you don't have to go and use your mate's cabin or your mate's office and get locked out, and
Yeah, set the alarm off and things. And that's all down to our good friend Elon Musk.
that's it.
I've had to get the Starlink in. I've turned to the dark side.
That's it, mate. But at least I can see you properly and you're not glitching and there's no busker in the background today, so we're all good.
Yeah, the busker does add an extra challenging.
I'll look forward to do it. You know what? I'm going to look forward to whenever that time comes when I come over to Dublin. We'll do one in your practice because it's on Grafton Street. We'll have the window open so we can get a little bit of background music coming in. That'd be quite nice.
We don't need the window open to get the background music. Literally, the street's like literally right outside the window.
Yeah.
And the windows wouldn't be like the highest standard of windows thing. It's like a single pane the glass. So no, it'll be good.
Listen, the opportunities will be endless if things go well. When things go well with the live pod in Dusseldorf, and that means we can take it everywhere and anywhere. And we still can't say too much about next year yet, but we've got lots of exciting things coming up, and we do have our plans with Phillips and with the Ionate Sport to keep us going in 2026. So, would again, as always, love to hear people's feedbacks with regards to the pause and what guests we can get on and what they would like us to talk about. We will be doing most likely a series of podcasts focused on specific parts of sports dentistry. I think as time goes on, so if there's topics that people want us to discuss, such as mouth guards, such as cosmetics, such as implantology, perio, education, prevention, oral hygiene, you name it, you know, we'll take it on board, and we'll definitely plant some seeds with some really, really great guests who can give us their expertise on it too. So I'm looking forward to 2026 because I think it could be a special year, my friend.
Yeah, I think we can do big things 2026 because we'll be able to sit down and plan it a bit. Where this year we've just like flagged it. We've just like let's just get up and run it and see how we get on and flag it. Get a few of our friends on like Fiona Davis and stuff to get us kicked off, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But now that we've got the hang of it and we've got a bit of momentum, we'll be able to put a proper plan in place for 2026. Like we'll be coming up to 30 episodes soon. Like we'll not be far off our 50th episode before we know it, and at that stage I think we should hopefully have a nice plan in place for where the podcast's going to go.
Yeah, I think our 50th episode should mark a special occasion, so we'll have to think of a good one or a good thing for that one. I've got some things in mind which I'll run past you, but not live on air.
Yeah. Some of your ideas, but like I'm still will not tell the listeners about your pie in the sky idea of Hong Kong 7, so that didn't last too long. But
hey, but the flame hasn't burnt out just yet on that.
Yeah, it has for this year, but
it has for this year. I just substituted it with Cape Town.
Yeah, you did. Fair play. Yeah, it's good. This weekend we've got the All Blacks are actually a good marker to see where everyone is. They're playing England this weekend, and England have been going very well.
Yeah,
since I don't think they've lost since the first game of the Six Nations this year. So it's going to be a good marker to see where England's resurgence has come and give Scotland and Ireland a bit of an idea of where they are. England leading into the Six Nations as well. So interesting weekend of sport as well.
Yeah, it will be. I'm actually working at the Scotland-Argentina game on Sunday, so I'll be pitch side for that. Fingers crossed it won't be too busy for the medical team, and the weather's set fair. Sunny day apparently in beautiful Edinburgh, so
should be quite competitive. I haven't seen Argentina's results recently, but they went well. They went fairly well in the Southern Nations Cup, whatever it's called now. It used to be the Tri Nations, but now there's 4 of them. I'm not sure what it's called.
Yeah, well, they've beaten all the Southern Hemisphere teams in the last year, so they're obviously
and they beat the Lions as well in Dublin. As a bad game. Should be good. Be nice. I'll get nice, cold and windy and wet. I'm sure it'll get you all ready for Dusseldorf.
That's absolutely right. In Dusseldorf, I won't be walking outside much. I'll tell you that for free right now. So in South Africa, different story. I will be outside as much as possible. Dusseldorf, I'll be indoors, but we'll be able to release one more episode before Dusseldorf, we should have that all ready to go as well. So to all our listeners, thank you. And not long now until we see you in Germany.
Yes, it's going to be good. Looking forward to it. Good to chat, Amir.
Yes, my man.
Catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care, buddy.
Take care.